Taiwan showcases its strengths in medicine with AI robots. Taipei calls foul over a supposed leaked military meeting, but is it just Chinese cognitive warfare?
那要尽速的来进行内部的调查，也会来溯源，知道他那个操作的手法以及可能背后的目的。
Training American chip makers could mean lower tariffs for Taiwan, but at what cost? Plus,
We're here in Hualien, eastern Taiwan, to find out how an ocean park plans to navigate a new wave of rules.
a warm welcome to Taiwan Plus News. I'm Leslie Liao. Taiwan is already a chip-making powerhouse, but over the last few years, it's also built its strength in healthcare technology. Now it's hoping to share that with the world. Cadence Quaranta has more.
Robots, robots, and more robots. Taiwan is showing off how it's bringing AI into the healthcare field. The tech is on display at a major Taipei expo. Officials there talking up the country's strides in medical tech, hoping to strengthen Taiwan's healthcare system and use its progress to help other countries. President Lutnick framing it as a tool for diplomacy to boost Taiwan's image globally.
那我们也看到这几年来，台湾的医疗服务积极走向国际，让国际社会了解台湾 can help 这样的精神。台湾不仅仅存在，台湾继续壮大，台湾也积极走进国际，让国际社会了解台湾。
At the expo, more achievements in bringing Taiwanese medical tech to other parts of the world. Here, an organization from the Czech Republic signs an agreement to buy over $200 million worth of medical devices from Taiwan. That equipment will go to sub-Saharan Africa to help support healthcare in the region. Several of Taiwan's Pacific and Caribbean allies are here too, signing an MOU with a Taiwanese company to give these countries their new AI medical imaging technology for free. It turns 2D black and white images into these kinds of 3D images.
So what it helps is that the doctors now, they can show 3D models to patients. Like you and me, we're not doctors, we don't have medical backgrounds. You look at the black and white images, you feel like, I don't understand what they're saying. But now, everything's in 3D. You can see at 360 degrees how your bone fracture looks like, how the tumor looks like. The doctors can now explain to the patients and their families what is happening to your body.
The company says its AI can also be loaded onto goggles like these, which doctors can wear while performing surgery. Countries that signed, including diplomatic allies Tuvalu, St. Kitts and Nevis, Belize, and St. Vincent, say they want to strengthen their healthcare cooperation with Taiwan.
We look forward to jointly advancing the following: AI-driven medical imaging standardization, 3D and MR clinical education and training programs, cross-border telemedicine and surgical consultation platforms, and clinical demonstration and technology cooperation projects.
For Taiwan, this expo shows it's no longer just a chip powerhouse, but a dynamo across the tech industry. And it hopes to share its strengths in areas like healthcare with partners around the world. Howard Zhang and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
The U.S. may be making some big asks of Taiwan in exchange for lower tariffs. A top U.S. official says training American workers and more investment are key to a good deal. And as Chris Gordon explains, President Lutnick might be on board despite some concerns from lawmakers.
Washington wants Taiwan to train its workers in advanced chip making, part of a deal to lower tariffs on Taiwan. That's according to U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in a recent interview.
But the fact is, this administration's goal is to bring semiconductor manufacturing to America, right? You remember TSMC announced a $100 billion increase in their build in Arizona, up to $165 billion. I think when we do a deal with Taiwan, that's even going to be bigger. And of course, they're going to train American workers.
Taiwan's cabinet, which is leading the negotiations, said on Thursday that workforce training was not part of the negotiations, but that it would be natural for Taiwanese companies to train their American workers. But President Lutnick, speaking with American media through an interpreter, signaled he's on board with the U.S. strategy. He framed it as a way to deepen ties.
We remain supportive as President Trump seeks investments from Taiwanese semiconductor companies and suppliers in the U.S. We hope Taiwan-U.S. tariff negotiations will not only help reduce the U.S. trade deficit, but also deepen bilateral economic cooperation.
But demanding that Taiwan train U.S. workers is controversial here. Some lawmakers fear a brain drain of top-tier engineers to the U.S. President Lai may also have dropped some hints about the type of investment Taiwan could make in the U.S. When asked whether the Trump administration's goal to reach 50% of chip production in the U.S. in the next few years is realistic, here's what he said.
Whether this target of 40 to 50% can be achieved within this time frame depends not only on Taiwan's support, but also on the U.S. government's ability to facilitate land acquisition, water and electricity supply, workforce and talent development, and investment incentives.
That list, land, water, and power, sounds very similar to the kinds of services provided at Taiwan's science parks. Those are the industrial clusters where much of the country's chip production is concentrated. And it seems to be the kinds of problems that could be solved through what the government is calling the Taiwan model of investment: private sector money, help with industrial clusters, and workforce training. So we'll see how lawmakers here react, as they will have to approve any final U.S.-Taiwan deal. But the comments from Lai and Lutnick do give some insight into what that deal might look like. Patrick Chun, Klein Wong, and Chris Gorin in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
In his interview with the New York Times, President Lai also touched on defense spending and China's threats to invade Taiwan. For more on that, we now turn to our reporter Tiffany Wong.
President Lai Ching-te says Taiwan needs to spend more on its defenses, and it needs to do it now. President Lai was speaking at the New York Times Dealbook Summit remotely, telling host Andrew Ross Sorkin that China's military is getting ready to take Taiwan by force by 2027. That's why he's pushing a special $40 billion defense budget to boost military spending over the next several years, a record amount. And the president says it's the only way to achieve peace.
We believe that peace is priceless and war has no winners. While we aspire to peace, we cannot harbor illusions about it. Peace must be secured through strength.
This comes after opposition lawmakers blocked Lai's defense budget bill from being reviewed. Still, he seems upbeat about the bill's prospects. Lai also sent a message to Beijing, urging Chinese President Xi Jinping to focus on his own country's problems instead of trying to take over Taiwan.
Taiwan's growth rate this year is projected to reach 7.37%, while international financial institutions estimate China's growth to be only a little above 4%. We sincerely hope that as China faces economic pressures, President Xi Jinping will focus not on territorial expansion, but on improving the well-being of the Chinese people.
This all comes as the U.S. and China seek to resolve trade tensions, something that's raised fears that Taiwan could be on the negotiating table. Washington is Taipei's biggest security backer, and increased defense spending would also benefit America. But at the Dealbook Summit, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent wouldn't say whether the U.S. would help Taiwan if war broke out. Taiwan's military is not its only source of strength. The country is set to see its biggest economic growth in 15 years, largely due to its tech dominance. And Taiwan's leaders are hopeful that its key position in the global chip supply chain will help bolster its defenses against China. Scott Huang and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
U.S. and Taiwanese defense contractors have struck a deal aimed at improving Taiwan's drone fleet. Under the agreement, U.S.-based firm Vantor will help local fighter jet developer AIDC integrate navigation systems into its combat drones. They say this could make drones more accurate in wartime. It comes as Taiwan's military works to beef up its defenses against aggressive moves by China. The Defense Ministry says it will buy almost 50,000 drones over the next 2 years and train reservists to operate them. China is sending a large wave of naval and Coast Guard ships across East Asian waters this week, according to Reuters. Chinese vessels have surged from the Yellow Sea through the contested South China Sea and out into the Western Pacific. As of Thursday morning, more than 90 ships were still active, slightly down from over 100 earlier in the week. Taiwan says it is watching closely for any military activity or drills, as December is typically a busy month for Chinese exercises. Taiwan has dismissed Chinese reports of secret meetings between Taiwanese and Dutch military officials earlier this year. They say the allegations were spread by a group with links to the Chinese Communist Party, Alan Liu reports.
Flight details, meeting records, even photos of the delegation. This article has raised eyebrows in Taiwan. It claims that 6 senior officials from Taiwan's Military Intelligence Bureau secretly traveled to the Netherlands in May to meet with their Dutch counterparts. Details about their identities and itinerary were then leaked online. The article also alleges that the Netherlands asked Taiwan to help spy on 2 top Chinese semiconductor experts. Taiwan's defense ministry denies the allegations, blaming China's intelligence efforts for the report.
针对中共匈牙利侨社欧洲万事达网传散我军情局与友盟情报合作已情，国防部军事情报局今日表示，相关内容失真且与事实不符。
Taiwan's National Security Bureau also chimed in, saying it'll conduct a thorough investigation into possible internal accomplices.
那要尽速的来进行内部的调查，到底是人安的问题还是治安的问题？那另外，在传散的部分也会来溯源，知道他那个操作的手法以及可能背后的目的。
Analysts say China conducts intelligence operations against Taiwan on a regular basis. From previously offering bounties for information on Taiwan's military units to this publicizing of alleged Taiwan-Europe intelligence exchanges. Some see this as China trying to show off its intelligence capabilities to sow discord within Taiwan.
那人员各自放上网，它主要还是为了要彰显说，它不只是靠网络的情资，是要制造说让我们的这个单位内部互相猜疑、互相猜忌。
It may also be to cause trouble between Taiwan and its allies.
它有打乱我方跟友盟安全合作的脚步节奏的一个用意，那也有这个以情报战为本质，发挥认知作战的一个效果。
With the leaks already out in the public, security experts say it highlights a growing need for Taiwan to strengthen its counterintelligence and cybersecurity. Chris Ma and Ellen Lu for TaiwanPlus.
Trade, security, and peace in Ukraine. That's what French President Emmanuel Macron told Chinese leader Xi Jinping he wants during an official visit to China. It comes as the EU looks to China to help end the war in Ukraine. A grand entrance for a grand guest. The French president meets his Chinese counterpart in Beijing. It's his 4th state visit to China. Emmanuel Macron's trip comes at a pivotal time for the world economy. Washington's sweeping tariffs have upended the global trading order, and Macron has to walk a tightrope. On one hand, Macron and other EU leaders have called for the bloc to introduce tougher trade regulations on China. An influx of cheap Chinese goods into Europe has been putting the squeeze on European industry, and the Union is working on a new economic security doctrine to establish stronger trade safeguards against Beijing. On the other hand, Macron doesn't have much room to antagonize Beijing. China is France's 7th largest trading partner, and it buys about $35 billion worth of French goods each year. During a joint news conference, Macron said the EU's reforms were necessary, even as he courted Chinese investment into his country.
Europe must reform itself to become more competitive and make more investment. China must pursue its agenda of strengthening domestic consumption, and we must find a framework for increasing Chinese direct investment in Europe, and in France in particular, to create added value and opportunities for employment.
And Xi Jinping seemed open to doing more business with France.
双方同意推动双边经贸关系平衡发展。
Beyond trade, Macron seeks China's help in bringing peace to Ukraine.
J'espère que la Chine pourra se joindre à notre appel à nos...
I hope that China could join our call and our efforts to achieve at the earliest possibility, at the very least, a ceasefire in Ukraine.
Xi did not directly respond to Macron's call, but did say that China supports all efforts that work toward peace. The state visit is a test for the French president. How will he balance the needs of his country with the needs of not just the EU, but also Ukraine? Ryan Wu and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus. Coming up after the break, hundreds are dead across Asia after powerful cyclones pummeled the region, and climate scientists warn fiercer storms lie ahead.
December on Game on Taiwan turns up the heat and opens up the heart. Taiwan's national basketball team goes all out in World Cup qualifiers. Baseball takes center stage as the WBC squad moves one step closer to the biggest challenge of the new year.
一切都不容易，讲这不容易是精神要赢球的那种信念，对，因为你必须要有那种想要赢球、渴望赢球，然后那个拼劲，你要展现出来，你才会有办法。
And through it all, the spirit of the season shines. This December, celebrate the warmth of sports with Game on Taiwan.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Indonesia and Sri Lanka face a painful cleanup a week after similar cyclones pummeled the two countries. Climate scientists say with a warming planet, these intense storms could become more regular. John Van Trieste reports.
The floodwaters are still high, more than a week after Cyclone Senyar hit Indonesia. More than 700 are dead, and the survivors are suffering. Rice farmer Edo Sitompul sheds a tear at the destruction, including heavy damage to his home and devastated crops. He says he just wants everything to go back to normal, but acknowledges that won't be easy. His wife says they've done little but cry and attempt to clean up. What the future holds is anyone's guess.
We have a lot of debt, but we borrowed from other people too. All of that debt was for the children, for small things like trying to plant rice on a little plot. But now there's nothing left to rely on. Everything is destroyed. So we don't even know anymore what we're going to eat in the days ahead.
Local officials say providing relief is their priority. But at least in some places, getting essentials is proving hard.
We have no blankets here, no towels, no diapers, no baby milk.
It's a similar story in Sri Lanka, another island nation hit by a violent storm last week. The death toll from Cyclone Ditwa is nearing 500. These people in the landslide-hit town of Mawatura are digging through rubble by hand, searching for those who didn't make it out in time.
We got together later and looked. Part of the village had disappeared. There was nothing left. Then we left to the temple for the night. We came back early in the morning. We saved a couple, but the child was dead. We took the two to the hospital and then came back to find buried bodies. That's what we're still working tirelessly for.
And, like in Indonesia, there's financial ruin. The owner of this electronics repair shop in the town of Gampola thought moving his goods upstairs would save them from the flood. He was wrong, and he estimates losses of more than $22,000 US.
There were about 20 television sets, and there were brand new LED TV sets. There were a lot of electronic goods that we had just repaired.
Scientists warn a warming Earth could bring more intense storms like this to places like Sri Lanka.
What we know is that the cyclones that we have, that are about in the same number, they become more intense. So they produce more rain, and so they are more impactful. So the same amount of cyclones produce impacts that are larger because they are all becoming more intense.
Which could mean the storms that hit Asia in the future could pack a serious bunch. leaving many more cleanups for residents like these. Dolphin Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan will soon bid farewell to live dolphin performances as it phases out using captive animals in entertainment. A team of TaiwanPlus reporters visited one of the country's few remaining ocean parks to find out what it means for people in the industry and why some activists think the phase-out doesn't go far enough.
田浩仁, one of just a handful of dolphin trainers in Taiwan, loves his job.
因为我自己念的，就是我的科系其实就是动物科学系，对，所以其实我从小就是非常喜欢就是这些动物，尤其是一些比较大型的动物。那我当然也有照顾过像是狮子、河马这类型的大型动物。那因为我自己本身也是非常喜欢玩水，对，所以我就是在玩水加动物的两个结合起来，就不小心来到海豚这边的。
除了从鱼身上的脂肪转换成水分以外，它会去吃一种动物叫做水母。
But in the years he's worked at Far Glory Ocean Park on Taiwan's east coast, and the decades since the animals were brought here, public attitudes have changed. Animal rights movements have led to a wave of criticism against the shows, saying the highly intelligent, highly social animals should not be kept captive.
Having wild animals on display, you know, tigers performing by jumping through flaming hoops and things like that. That is the history that we're talking about, and that's definitely gone out of style. And so some jurisdictions that are looking at the captivity of cetaceans are focused on the performance. But that is the least problem. That is the smallest part of the problem. Cetaceans, whales, dolphins, porpoises simply do not thrive in captivity.
Dolphin shows started in Taiwan in 1981. Today, they're held at only 2 venues, Yellow Ocean World in New Taipei and here in Hualien.
它是在最早是从台湾将鲸豚列为保育类动物之前就已经开始野柳这边就已经开始在饲育鲸豚，然后把它训练成表演的这样的一个秀，对，那所以其实是蛮久的。
Tian and his team joined long after the animals were taken into captivity. Today, the park is home to 5 dolphins, 4 bottlenose and 1 rare Risso's dolphin. They have lived in this tank for about 20 years. Even though this pool is much larger than the average swimming pool, but when you think about it, it's much smaller than the ocean. And while these animals are being taken care of, it's impossible to know whether they are truly happy. Without trainers working with them, the animals would spend their days swimming countless laps.
其实对我们来说，就是有更多的时间，可能可以去陪伴他们，或是我们去做更多的不同的训练，像是我们现在有在做一些训练是海豚的认知训练。假如说我现在拿一个物品给他看，那我们让海豚去看到这个物品之后，去选择相对的物品。那这个训练可以刺激他们的大脑。
The park has also changed its shows over the years to better look after the animals, making them less physically taxing.
因为其实，在20多年前海洋公园最有名的其实是一个叫做火箭人的动作。当时那个动作其实吸引了亚洲各国的训练师，甚至有人花了大笔的钱来挖我的训练师过去要做这个动作。我们在17年做了第一次的转换，是我们把技术的动作给拿掉，同时在它的环境场域也开始做了很多的改善。
Today, the animals spend less than an hour of their day in front of audiences, leaving trainers to fill up the rest of their time.
我们现在在做的事情是，他们要学会一个合作行为，所以把一个算是 puzzle， 这个所谓的这个拼图啦，或者是需要动脑的玩具，去所谓的解谜的方法去解开来。
Despite the growing push against animal performances, some spectators say the shows have an educational purpose, especially for children.
我觉得是很难得有一个近距离可以让他们感受，因为有些东西他们其实是在书本上或者在电视机上面可以看到，但我觉得可以近距离的感触是一个很不错的体验。
我觉得海洋公园带给小朋友认识要保养，应该说要对海洋做环保的动作，让生态永续下去。交配，还有吗？
飞起来了。
But the dolphin behavior the kids see in the shows does not resemble how they behave in the wild.
These performances are very circus-like. They're not educational. In fact, very often they misinform the public. Dolphins don't do the things that they are made to do in performances naturally, most of the time, okay? So I think that's why they're focused on it. But the fact is that cetaceans who live in the ocean, of course, it's very difficult for us to provide them with the conditions they need to thrive.
This perspective has gained traction. Taiwan joins a growing list of countries, including Mexico, Costa Rica, and Chile, to ban performances. But the animals have already spent decades in captivity and can't just be set free. And that leaves questions about how they'll spend the rest of their lives and what role their trainers will play. Howard Zhang, Fu Hong, Brent Thomas, and Sanny Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Before we go, let's take a look at some of the treats on offer at the Christmas fair in Dresden, Germany. Leslie Liao, take care. See you next time.